Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's me, Addy, again, and I hope you guys are doing alright. So, hot on the heels of our Armored Core 6 playthrough and my initial impressions video on the game, I'm here today to bring you my full review of the game. With a twist, as some of you may already know, I uploaded an update video to this channel where I discuss a couple of changes coming to my review videos going forward. If you haven't seen that video, the TLDR is that I'm going to be making shorter reviews and overhauling my rating system. And this video is going to be serving as a starting point for these new ideas, so let's strap on in for this ride together and see how this goes. I'm excited. Alright, so as a quick recap, Armored Core 6 is FromSoftware's latest entry after a very long time into their long-running mecha series, and as a big fan of FromSoftware due to their Soulsborne series of games, in fact I would say that they're my favorite developer in the business right now, I really wanted to dive into this one, despite not being a big fan of mecha games in general, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So Armored Core 6 is a straightforward game. You suit up into a hulking mecha, deploy into a series of missions, and go apeshit on a bunch of robos with a myriad of guns and swords. And as you play through these missions, you accrue money which you can then use to customize your mecha further with an absurd amount of build variety available, then deploy back into missions again, and then so on and so forth. And at the end of each chapter, you'll face off against an insanely difficult boss as per FromSoftware tradition. But what's interesting about this game is that unlike FromSoftware's usual MO, the basic enemies preceding these final bosses in each chapter aren't particularly difficult, which I didn't think was necessarily a bad thing since I get what the game is trying to go for. It wanted me to feel comfortable testing out the gazillion different parts and weapons of my mecha without the fear of getting decimated in one or two hits. Which still does happen from time to time, believe me. No, screw you. Ah! What the hell is happening? I'm gonna go here, screw all of you. Screw me apparently too. Speaking of the game's vibe, let's talk about the stunning graphics for a moment. The graphics in this game look incredible, and as usual, FromSoftware once again knocked it out of the park with their art direction here. In Armored Core 6, you deploy on the icy planet of Rubicon, which is a war-torn rock where mega corporations are scrambling for a special yet deadly resource called coral. Everything on this planet has this apocalyptic and destructive look and feel to it, especially the skyboxes, which are bathed in these fiery streaks that look hauntingly beautiful. And you're also given the ability to paint, style, and shade every single little piece of your mecha down to the bone, which supplement the already insane level of customization present in this experience. So overall, the visual style, options, and fidelity were brilliant in this game, and it really did help that the game was well optimized on top of this, and the performance was therefore solid from start to finish, which allowed me to really immerse myself in this gritty setting. But as always, the visuals weren't the only aspect of this game that had their own tale to tell, for the auditory landscape did as well. And on that note, I will say that while the music, which was primarily composed of electronic and techno vibes, did complement the overall experience quite nicely, I admittedly didn't find any one track in this game to be particularly memorable. I'd say what really stands out about Armored Core 6 is the replayability. A lot of this game has been designed to encourage players to replay missions for higher ranks and more money so that they can experiment with every single limb, torso, gun, cannon, and sword that there is to use in this game, all of which can be combined in 1,000,001 different ways to impact the gameplay in 1,000,001 drastic ways. And since this game has multiple different endings that are based on what choices you get to make, it makes playing through the whole thing again worth it to see what you can do differently and how that shapes the rest of the story in a way that you haven't seen. Now, I haven't personally played New Game Plus in this game, which is flown right into as soon as you beat playthrough 1, but I have heard that for the reasons I mentioned, as well as the fact that missions you've done before quite literally change in some really interesting ways, that it is absolutely worth playing through. Speaking of gameplay, let's dive into my favorite way to tackle this mechanized world. So, in Armored Core 6, my favorite kind of build to run was a tank loaded only with the slowest, clunkiest, heaviest, yet angriest weapons to use in the game. And this enabled me to brute force a good portion of this game's challenging bosses by the skin of my teeth, which felt oh so satisfying. Oh my god, we're getting him. We're beating him! Come on! Come on! Oh yeah! Let's go. I can't believe that actually worked. I can't believe that worked, man. All I did was I spammed my bumpers and my triggers. That's it. That's all I did. However, as I continued to play, one thing I noticed was that the bosses towards the end of the game almost forced me to run a very particular build to defeat them. At least, that was the impression that I was getting. And there were more than a few times where I wish that any build could be viable against any boss in this game, kind of like in the Soulsborne games where even if you run the slowest, tankiest build, you still have a chance of going toe-to-toe with a boss who won't hesitate to zip right through you and slice and dice you into a cake, provided that you learn their moveset. In this game, it feels like even if you do learn a boss's moveset, it doesn't really matter if you're not running the build that the game wants you to. You're gonna get sliced up like the aforementioned cake. One of the bosses in this game was really nagging me to beat her with a very specific set of weapons that I was super tempted to use, and I even got her down to her last bit of HP with them. But it didn't feel right to kill her with what felt like a cheesy strategy, and I decided to bite the bullet and die to her 100 times with a build that I personally wanted to run in order to beat her, which felt so much more rewarding in the end. Oh my god, I'm actually dodging this shit. I don't know how I dodged this shit, but I did. Oh! Come on, come on, come on. Oh, you motherfucker! Take that! Oh my god! Oh shit, I got saliva coming out of my mouth. That's how thirsty I was for this shit. But speaking of these bosses, you know, the boss designs themselves were spectacular, especially this one that you face off against at the game's midpoint, where without getting into too many spoilers, the boss you face is more of this epic narrative set piece than an actual gameplay challenge in which you and all your comrades on Rubicon face off against a massive beast that was incredibly hype-inducing. And it really does help that the controls both during the specific fight and the rest of the game are pretty fluid and satisfying. Flying feels good, shooting feels good, aiming is a little wonky if you're on a controller as opposed to mouse and keyboard, but overall the weight and stature of your mecha always feels right given what you've equipped it with, which is awesome. Now, I did mention the midpoint of this game a little second ago, and I feel like it's worth mentioning that following this point in the game got significantly more compelling on the narrative side of things, at least for me personally. One of the things I mentioned in my impressions video was that the game wasn't doing much at all for me when it came to the characters and the story, the former of which you never get to see but only hear throughout the experience. But after the halfway point in the story, things really start to get a lot more gripping. In Armored Core 6, you play as a mercenary fighting for various sides and factions on Rubicon, and about 60% into the game, I started to become more invested in their stories and motivations, which definitely influenced how much I cared about each decision I was going to make and how this would shape the future of Rubicon. But yeah, all of this leads me to say is that if you're not huge in the mecha genre, and you aren't big on stories that don't feature faces or traditional cutscenes with characters visibly talking and interacting with one another, you're gonna have a slightly difficult time getting into Armored Core 6, which is why ultimately, it's a game that I recommend with reservations. I'm admittedly someone who's part of the camp I just described. I'm not big on mecha games, and the story for the first half of this experience didn't really cut it for me, but like I said, so many of the characters got interesting in the second half, and it really helps that their voice performances were full of personality. And on top of this, while the game has by no means turned me into a massive fan of the mecha genre, it was still incredibly fun to play, and I attribute that to the game's opening boss. As a Soulsborne fan who loves being beaten to death. Alright, that may sound weird, but bear with me, alright? If you're a fellow Soulsborne fan out there, you can probably relate, right? As a fellow Soulsborne fan who loves being beaten to death an absurd number of times by some introductory boss in order to learn the rules of one of these games, I'll say that it was a joy seeing something like that return in a genre I'm largely unfamiliar with. The very first boss that you fight in Armored Core 6 served as one of the most painfully wonderful skill checks that I am honored to have gotten my ass destroyed by. And it is this boss who made me come to love the gameplay of Armored Core 6 and decide to stick with it to the end. Thank you, AH-12AC helicopter. What the hell, game? What is this bullshit? Oh my god. At 50%, he just keeps nuking you. Where'd he go? He's so high. Hi, Mr. So High. Fuck. I'm so dead. Fuck. Oh, man, we almost had him that time. No. Oh, what the fuck got me there? Was he firing more rockets? Yeah, he was. Oh my god, man. Man, this last phase is so fucked up. I'm losing my mind. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of Armored Core 6 today, as well as this debut of a new means of approaching my review videos. I had a lot of fun with this today, and I'm excited to make the next one down the line on who knows what game, considering I'm playing so many at once right now during the insanity for game releases that is 2023. As always, do drop a like in the video if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. And be sure to follow me over on twitch.tv/irritableindian so you can catch me playing these wonderful games live. A link to that is in the description below. But until the next one, folks, stay happy, stay healthy, stay positive, and as always, keep on keeping on.